and welcome back. It's day 3 of the European Bauhaus Festival, and now we have a session that, to me, I've been really looking forward to this one. This is Professor Carlos Moreno. He really, for many, this is iconic. The idea that he created is a 15-minute city. Everything that you need around you would be in the range of time of 15 minutes. So this is something that I'm sure many in Brussels would love. I know I would love it. So let's welcome Professor Moreno, who's joining us here on stage. Professor, come on in. The stage is yours. Please make Brussels a 15-minute city. If you can do that, we will love you forever.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure for me to be here. Thank you for your presence, and thank you for the audience by stream. I want to take during 25 minutes on this new revolution, the revolution of proximities. This is a concept of the academic research at Sorbonne University in Paris. I am the scientific director of my team. And we wanted to propose a new paradigm for reinventing our proximities. This concept is very popular around the world today, the 50-minute city, and we needed to understand better this concept. In particular, I discussed with the organizer of the new European Bauhaus Festival in order to develop a convergence between these two concepts. How could we develop these sustainable consumptions? At the same time, how could we increase a better urban life or better territorial urban life? The new European Bauhaus is based on these 3 magical words: sustainable, beauty, and together. And I want to propose to add this 4th word, local, for proximity. The 50-minute city, this is not a problem, 15, 10, 17. The most important point, the most significant point is proximity. And even proximity, the plural, proximities, because we needed to reinvent a lot of proximities. The distances, the cultural proximities, the new feel, new communities, for having these new capabilities for understanding how could we transform our cities in a livable cities. James Jacobs, the North American activist in 70s, said, a city is livable when we have the possibility for having a choice every time, everywhere. And for that, we need to understand that a city is sustainable. This is the first word of the new European Bauhaus, sustainable. A city is sustainable if the city is alive. We need to understand the city metabolism, because we needed to adapt not the human conditions for a city, but to adapt the uses of the city, the services of the city. We needed to transform in permanence our cities, but we need to have this obsession to have every time, everywhere choices. This is different pictures. There are these different pictures took by myself in different points of the planet, in South America, in France, in Copenhagen, in UK, in Montreal. This is possible to transform our city. This is possible to have a more sustainable city. This is possible to have new relationships, because in reality, be sustainable is to create new relationships with nature, with people, and of all kinds of material and immaterial resources. Some people think that sustainable is only to preserve nature, to preserve the fragile resources. It is true, but it is not enough. We need to preserve, to foster relationships with people, with the material resources. I mean, the data today, because we need to develop the new digital links for creating social links, and we need to develop, this is the case, a sustainable place. This is one of the most sustainable place in Europe, this Gare Maritime. Beauty is to have a singular relationships for being, to have a feeling, to have sensations, to be inspired, and to have this possibility to express appeasement. Inclusion, the third word of the new European Bauhaus. Inclusion, a city for all, a city for living in a sustainable and beautiful city. But I said to European Union, I said to team of Ursula von der Leyen with the new European Bauhaus, sustainable, beauty, inclusive, I agree totally. However, I consider that without a vibrant local life, reaching all kinds of relationships and concrete actions in the daily life with a livable proximity, nothing it will be possible. We need today proximity. We need to transform our daily life. In fact, we need to redesign our urban and territorial framework. We need to change the relationship between space and time. The urban space, the territorial space, and the useful time, because we lost our useful time. For that, I consider that this is totally urgent to change our daily lifestyles. Our cities, in fact, have designed with the traditional urbanism for 7 decades after the Second War, based on a specialized city, the center, the peripheries, the suburbs, outskirts, and with a lot of infrastructures in order to foster people for go faster and furious, and unfortunately, often by private car. We needed to transform on this idea. The French philosopher Pascal said, God is a sphere with a center everywhere, and the circumference, nothing. I think that the city, we needed to transform for developing this polycentric city, this possibility for having in all circumstances, everywhere, every time, lot of services. The 15-minute city in the twin concept, the 30-minute territory, 15-minute city for the compact zone, 30-minute territory for middle and low density, is a journey. The 50-minute city is not a magic wand. I met a lot of mayors around the world, in all continents, and they answered to me, I need to transform my city in a 50-minute city. I said, this is not a magic wand, this is a path, this is a trajectory, this is a journey. We need to define a roadmap for developing this great challenge to change our urban and territorial lifestyles definitely and radically. This is some pictures of our daily life in several cities around the world. Climate change, CO2, traffic jams, mass transportation in poor conditions, shopping centers, unhuman shopping centers, and for 2 years, the COVID-19 pandemic. In reality, I said to different mayors that we no longer have a choice. We're arriving in a planetary threshold. we are in the extreme conditions for living today with the climate change, that climate change is today a reality around the world. In just a few weeks, we have 1.3 billion inhabitants in Asia under extreme temperatures, 40, 45, even 50. This is unsustainable if we continue to live in the same conditions. This is the map of temperatures 3 weeks ago in Europe, with the abnormal temperatures in a range of 5 until 20 degrees in Europe. And this is just 2 weeks ago, the temperatures in our continent. In the next week, we will have a new heat wave in Europe. The IPCC, in the latest report on April 4th, said for fighting against climate change, we have 3 years only for defining a radical roadmap in order to reach the carbon neutrality at the horizon 2050. And for that, we needed to reduce at least of 50% or more our CO2 footprint. And the IPCC reported this. One of the ways for developing a success for reducing the impact of the global warming is to develop this local way for developing proximities and developing the 50-minute city, 20-minute city, to develop this happy neighborhood, to develop happy proximity. This is the report with my research work for fostering people to embrace this way. This is the map of our continent. And I said often, our continent is not a continent of country, really, it is a continent of cities. This morning, I was in Paris. At noon, I am in Brussels, just 2 hours. We have been living in an urbanized world. And this is, at the same time, an hyper-connected world. For the first time, our humanity is massively connected. Connected, of course, for human, and connected for things. Today, in this urbanized world, we have a danger, the danger to become zombie geeks. I call zombie geeks that people is massively technologically connected, and zombie because at the same time is unfortunately people massively socially disconnected. In an urbanized world, in face with climate change, in face with the hectic life where we have lost our useful time, we need urgently to change our daily lifestyles in order to find a very simple thing, a human scale city. A human scale city for avoiding to become zombie geeks, for saying hello, for watching our world by our eyes and not by the lens of our smart devices, for having the real familiar relationships, for developing vibrant and livable neighborhood, for having more and more local social activities, for developing more local jobs, for optimizing our resources, our material resources, for developing this necessary preservation of the common good, and in particular, the urban common good. The urban common good is the air, is the water, is trees, is the data, and we needed to preserve the common good if we wanted to have a real perspective for finding in our cities the solutions. Cities are the problem because we have lived in polluted cities, air, water, a scarcity of resources, but at the same time, cities have the solutions. And with the COVID-19, we have constrained to live in the new conditions, to work in the new conditions, to access to different resources for supplying, for example, in the new conditions. We have discovered neighbors during the COVID-19. We have discovered public spaces in proximity. We have just this constraint for walking during 1 hour. And this was, in reality, a very impressive windows for discovering our proximity. We need to develop today a real new urban and territorial lifestyles just for defining in what kind of city we want to live in. In reality, this is the good question. If do you want to continue to live with traffic jams, air polluted, water polluted, without a useful time, okay. We could continue to live as today in this hectic life. But I'm not sure if at the end of the century our humanity continued to exist. I'm not sure if in our different cities we could have livable cities in 2050. I'm not sure if we have the possibility to preserve the quality of life because we have lost at the same time our useful time and we have lost our quality of life. The 50-minute city, this is a holistic way, this is a systemic approach for answering to this question, in what kind of city we want to live in. Because we need to be aware that we live today in cities, including Brussels, including Paris, including London, with this strong segmentation. Our cities are segmented, specialized. In reality, we have been continuing to live with the paradigm of the zoning after Le Corbusier in 1930. And we need to develop a new battle. This battle, this is for reconquering the urban space, to reconquer an useful time. For that, I propose to the European Union to insist in these convergences: sustainable, beauty, inclusive, and local. And local because we need to break with this specialized city. We need to break this segmented city. We need to break this fractured city. Now, our perspective today, this is not enthusiastic way with the economical crisis, the inflation, the social tensions. In France, the name is the Yellow Vest, but this is today a very complicated situations in different points of Europe. We need to reconquer an intellectual path. We need to become again thinkers of the city. For a long time, we have a lot of thinkers. The Clarence Perry at the beginning of 20th century, the new urbanism, the new pedestrianism. We have Edgar Morin with the philosophy of complexity. We have James Jacobs. And we could observe the Brussels declarations. The Brussels Declaration, this is very important declaration in 80s. the Déclaration de Bruxelles, the Brussels Declaration, this is the anti-Athens chart. The Brussels Declarations said in our European cities, we must create streets, squares, avenues, blocks, gardens with a livable and friendly presence. We needed to fight against the specialized zone, to break with the zoning. We need to develop the multi-purpose functions, the multifunctional activities, to rediscover green spaces, to rediscover pedestrianizations, to rediscover a human-scale city. The Brussels Declaration is one of the main sources of inspirations for proposing the 50-minute city concept. My friend Richard Sennett, a former professor at London School of Economics, today in Human Habitat, he said, distance is a vice and density is a virtue. For a long time, we have confused density with promiscuity. We need to redevelop this human density, this happy density, this organic density. The 50-minute city, in fact, is a new relationship between time, the useful time, and the space, the urban space, for proposing a high societal quality of life, and in particular, to take a new control of our time. We needed to escape to this hectic life. The first time when I evoked the 50-minute city was in October 2016. And I proposed this new urban life, new territorial life, based on this polycentric city. In a multiple proximity, a stronger social mixity, functional mixity, to rediscover human density, organic density, and to use technology for create social links, for create a new business model, the ubiquity. Today, this concept is very popular around the world, in all continents, in all languages, in all cultures, and regardless of the size of the city, big metropolises or small cities, we have this possibility for implementing this concept. Buenos Aires, Busan, Switzerland or Zurich, different points of the planet, we have this vision that localism, proximities, neighborhood, neighbors, human, social links, local economies, local jobs, pedestrianizations, bike mobility, green areas are totally necessary for having a real quality of life. This is very different to this configuration of a city as Milan with Piazza Loreto before and now. This is a complete transformation because we wanted to live in this place. This is not the case when this is just a roundabout. And this is the project based on 50-minute city in Milano with the announcement of the mayor of Milano, Giuseppe Sala, for investing 260 million euros for developing this new configuration based on bikeability, pedestrianizations, and multimodality with tramway and metro. I went to Buenos Aires a few months for helping the mayor, Horacio Rodríguez Larreta, for transforming a city as Buenos Aires, a big metropolis, with this idea of to develop new centralities. We need to develop not one centrality, we need to develop multiple centralities. We need to develop multiple polarities. 2 days ago, I was in Mexico. And in Mexico, in Infonavit, this is the Institut National for Funding for Social Housing, has decided to define a new rule, a new code for just developing by constraint rules in all 2 kilometers services for having this possibility for proposing social housing. Because it is not possible to continue to have a social housing, the cheap rent, without local services. We needed to transform. This is the master plan of the city of Shenzhou in China, based on the 50-minute city. In China, the name is the 50 Minutes Community Life Circle. And today, 52 cities in China have decided to embrace this concept. This is in Africa, in North Africa, in Tunisia, South, the implementation of this concept for transforming. And I am very proud of this implementation because this is just a small village in France, 4,000 inhabitants. Because I wanted to show that it is possible to implement regardless of the size of cities or territories, regardless of the density. Because the most important point for us is how could we redefine the quality of life. We need to redefine the quality of life for fighting against 3 poor behaviors. The long commute, 2 hours more, 3 hours for a round trip daily for going from my home to my office. The second point, the waste of buildings. The rate for using a building in general is less than 40%. A building is closed more than 60–70% because a building is used only for one function. We needed to transform radically this situation. We need to have buildings with intensive uses, the multi-purpose functions. And the third point, the loss of social interactions because we have more sleeping neighborhood rather than livable neighborhood. The 50-minute city is based on these 3 ideas to change the rhythm of the city. And this is possible today because after the COVID-19, we have learned to work differently. We have learned to live differently. We have learned to supply differently. The chronotopia for developing these massive multi-purpose functions of building. A disco, it is only open during the night 3 days, on Friday, on Saturday, on Sunday. We could transform a disco during the afternoon for having a sport place. And the last point, the topophilia, for developing a new urban culture, for loving our place, for loving our street, for loving our squares, for developing more and more intense activities with a lot of social links in our proximities. We need to offer a lot of local services because if we have local services, we have the massive local services in proximity, automatically we will improve our quality of life. We need to fight against gentrification. Gentrification is our enemy. And for that, we need to preserve the common good. The 50-minute city is a urban policy for local governance, for mayors, for metropolises, for the president of the metropolis. It is not possible to develop a 50-minute city only managed for the private sector. Because in this case, we could foster a new gentrifications. The common good is essentially, if we wanted to develop this concept, with this ecology in our daily attitude, proximity with a lot of services, solidarity with the social links, new business local models, a civic commitment. This is the core of the 50-minute city, to live, to work, to supply, to care, to learn, to enjoy in our proximities. This is a new urban narrative. This is the possibility for changing our urban and territorial mindset, for developing a new social circularity. Just I want to finish with this picture. The secret of the 50-minute city is to generate a massive mixity within proximity, to generate a lot of intersections for living, for working, for supplying, for caring, for learning, for enjoying, in permanence, in a massive proximity, for increasing my quality of life, my personal well-being, with my family, my sociability, with my neighbor and my work colleagues, and to have this ecological and sustainable attitude with the planet. The 50-minute city, this is a polycentric city, and this is not only your 50-minute city for each one of us, this is the 50-minute city every time, everywhere, in all city. Thank you.
Well, huge round of applause. Very good. Very good. Really
Thank you,
fascinating.
thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, this is appreciated. Thank you very much, Professor.
My personal sustainable water.
And please make me 50-minute city. I don't want to take the car anymore. And well, thank you so much for this. I mean, this is really a concept that I find fascinating, of course. Thank you so much to the professor for that presentation. And now, of course, if you're online, we haven't forgotten about you. There's a 50-minute break that you can take, and we'll be right back after those 15 minutes. And for everyone that is here, we have another interesting conversation coming up that I will bring to you. Thank you so much. We'll see you in 15 minutes if you're watching online. That's the European New Bauhaus Festival. Very good.